Hello, how are we all doing? Welcome to the stream. I'm just coming off watching an episode of Grand Designs with a couple of really annoying, really posh wankers. So I'm a little bit het up about that, and it's really upsetting to me that I'm really het up about Grand Designs. It's indicative of perhaps the end of my life. I'm getting old and getting angry at Grand Designs, and it's really upsetting to me. But we'll try and move past that for now, and we'll talk about something less horrific than getting mad at Grand Designs at 26 years old. So today's stream, I've got no notes. Hey everyone, thanks for dropping by. For some reason, my YouTube chat is coming through quite slowly. I can see it coming through in Discord. Oh, hey, Paul Robin. Everybody should subscribe to Paul the Robin on YouTube as well. He's got a great channel. Yeah. So today, I've not done a stream in a while. Grand Designs is the Dark Souls of TV shows. I couldn't agree more. My personal thesis is that we should, after the revolution, everyone who's ever done a property show gets fired in a rocket into the sun. because they are, without exception, the fucking worst. Every single one of them. I hate them all. They live in my mind like little goblins just chipping away at my sanity. Fucking Grand Designs. The worst one is, what's her name? Kirsty from Location. Fucking, I hate that shit. The only reason it's on is because the other people who live in this house, my parents, like a property show, and it is beyond me. It is beyond my understanding. Probably because I know I will likely never own property, and that probably eats at me a little bit. Anyway, today it's gonna be a sort of chilled out stream. I don't have any notes, so this could go in any number of directions. It's been a while since I've done a stream, and I thought it's since I didn't do one last month for last month's video. Well, I guess it was 2 videos last month. I guess since I was late in putting up the video for last month, for February. For anyone who is not on Patreon, got 2 months videos this month. So we'll go through both some stuff on the patriotism video and on the free speech one. Any questions or anything that anyone wants to talk about regarding those videos. I didn't rewatch them before doing this, which I maybe should have, so that I could accurately talk about the things I said. But, you know, we live and we learn, and I probably won't learn. So, with that said, let's just dive in and start talking about shit. I'm going to be reliant on chat to send me off on tangents here because, like I said, no notes. So if you want to get me cancelled and say something that I'll probably regret, I know that Teo in the chat wanted to get me cancelled. So we'll see what happens. So the reason I decided to do this stream today was primarily because I was watching an internet panel last night about free speech. It was a non-compete. American Johnson did a panel with We're in Hell and with some other good left-wing video creators, including Ronan Youngblood, who helped me out with actually find sources for the patriotism video. She got me some good resources for that one, including Emma Goldman, who's always great. Always love Emma Goldman. But the discussion they were talking about, it had like We're in Hell as well. Everyone loves We're in Hell. But the discussion quickly on that panel descended into the exact thing that I was worried that in the video on cancel culture I was worried about, which was talking about free speech getting bogged down in the abstract notions of when it's okay to do censorship, or if it's okay to do censorship at all. And like, these issues are just not, I think, that pertinent, and it leads them to like really real tricky places when you start talking about things like when it's okay to do censorship, or when it's not okay to do censorship. And you start talking about like, oh, is it okay that students shut down a Milo Yiannopoulos, how do you pronounce his name? Yiannopoulos meeting at a university campus? Is that okay, or is that censorship? And you're like, this is not really the issues that we should be discussing in terms of free speech. This sort of whether or not these particular issues constitute censorship, or just going down alleyways that are gonna leave you missing the woods for the trees. And that's what I wanted to get across in this video most clearly, was that when we talk about free speech, we need to be very clear in our intent about what free speech, like what is the main free speech, what's the main problem with free speech in our society. And of course, the main problems of free speech are the structures and systems of racial capitalism, as I sought to try and make clear in this video. Yeah, like Taylor's saying, who gives a fuck about Milo? Like, is who gives a shit if a Nazi gets yeeted off, like gets kicked off Facebook or um, Facebook or Twitter, and like, frankly, who cares if Trump gets kicked off Twitter? I mean, we do miss his tweets, but like, it's not that important, and they always like turn it around like by saying, "Oh, all these things they'll turn it and use it on the left," and they're right, but like that is the problem that we should be arguing about, not about whether it's okay that you agree. I've never had a tweet that's wrong. So I mean, I guess I'm behind that. You can censor my tweets when I'm wrong, because you'll be censoring none of my tweets. Every single one of my tweets is a fucking chunk of gold that I spit out onto the timeline. There is nothing I've ever said that is wrong. Uh, I I mean, you can feel free to come at me on that, but I will stand behind everything that I've ever said at any time, and I will refuse to apologise. Uh, that that is the truth, and frankly, I think it makes me a better good faith actor on the internet than anyone who's a coward enough to apologise. That's right, Kai. Pure pearls. Um, what's this? Toad says, I think Jordan Peterson's attempt to build a blacklist of postmodern neo-Marxist professors and courses so they could be banned is the perfect encapsulation of how the right treats freedom of speech. Yeah, you're exactly right, and those things are much more difficult, much more, and what's the word? Insidious than a bunch of students playing air horns over every time Jordan Peterson tries to bloviate over some nonsense that he's talking about. And those things have real, like, deep material effects. And in terms of who gets that free speech and who gets who is the subject of censorship and who is the subject of protection, there's a good section in the book. No, sorry, it's not in the book. It was in a report cited in the video of campus free speech, and the author of the report makes the point that when some university professors and where some speakers got censored or got deplatformed by people protesting that they'd come and that they were doing racist shit, the university has provided those people with security and with microphones and with like a lot of support so that they could speak on campuses. But when that is compared to a professor in the US, a black left-wing professor in the US, who was also the subject of deplatforming, this time from the right, because of her post-colonial research and because of what she was talking about, the university has provided absolutely no support for her, because these systems will always work to benefit the right over the left. So that sent me off. Thanks, Toods. That was a good point that sent me on a tangent. Today we'll be oh, hello Bubble Boy. Thanks for joining us. Today we'll be scrambling to keep me chatting for like an hour. Usually I have like 3 pages of notes, but here I'm just like fucking shooting from the hip, everything off the dome. John Unfiltered. Sorry, that's just the big cancelled picture has turned me into a actual Netflix special. Like Taylor's saying, it is very notable when people focus on reactionaries and not sex workers, trans workers, black activists who are constantly getting censored. That is exactly right. And it's always the it's always the Nazis who get to monopolize this discourse. Like they, and all of these questions, it's never about, you know, who gets invited on to discuss sex worker rights, because it's very rarely sex workers, or if it is, it's one sex worker pitted against 5, swerf or Tory arseholes, and their position is always framed as an extreme one. And the same with trans or with black activists. They're always on the back foot on media and on traditional media platforms and on social media platforms, as the example of Palestine that I used in the video makes clear. Those same systems and structures of oppression which silence particular groups, and usually particularly over-policed groups, and who is more over-policed than people in an open-air prison, those oppressions are then replicated on the online sphere. And it's why sometimes you'll get some forms of leftists who the co-op leftists who'll be like, the only thing that we need to do to really overcome these things is to just nationalize and democratize Facebook, but within the broader systems of racial capitalism, by just doing that without a fucking whole host of revolutionary activity, you're just again going to replicate those same problems. So the issues of free speech are so deeply embedded within the structures of our society. Luke Johnson, in my opinion, to be honest, getting kicked off Twitter is meaningless since it's mostly symbolic and not actual consequences. But I think knowing that symbols are meaningless denies the power behind the symbols. I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree entirely. A lot of the time, and particularly particularly sex workers, have used Twitter as a way to promote themselves, and getting kicked off there it cuts off income streams for them. And for people say LGBTQ people who are in the closet, it is often a way of interacting with people as themselves that they are denied in the quote real world. So getting kicked off these platforms can have material real disruptive material consequences on people's lives, but it's which consequences that you have to understand, which ones matter. A Nazi not being able to spread Nazi rhetoric is obviously good. A sex worker being cut off from a potential income stream is obviously bad. And I don't want to... Oh, hey, Sinan, thanks for popping in. I don't want this to... Actually, this is going to become my new catchphrase. Different things are different. And I think that we should all do well to remember that as things go forward. So this is the first time I've actually had to scroll back in chat, so this is fun. When did getting banned online even become censorship anyway? I think there is something interesting in how. I think it's a slightly separate question, but I think there is something interesting in the way that a platform like Twitter, like Facebook, has become public space, and the removal of someone from public space could be viewed as censorship. I think that is an interesting, if maybe slightly separate conversation to the one that I was having in the video. So I do think that that it can be censorship, being kicked off public platforms. And again, to bring it back to examples in the video, the way that Palestinian liberation organisations were consistently discriminated against, consistently blocked from Facebook, from organising. I think that is a real material example of censorship, and I think it's important to label it as such. So I do think that being banned online can in a very real way be censorship. Let's see. John Unfiltered is the name of your podcast with Ben Shapiro. Oh Christ, that's cursed. John Unfiltered is just complaining about grand designs. I would start a podcast of me complaining about grand designs, way before I even thought to talk about fucking Ben Shapiro or talk to Ben Shapiro. Tom Hill, planning any videos on Scottish politics? Not specifically. Scottish politics is a hellscape, and it's really fucking dull. I think the video I did on Scotland's relationship to imperialism is probably the most instructive video on the conditions of Scottish politics right now. What I'm not going to do is a video on independence, because I just can't be dealing with that. I can't be dealing with the fucking discourse on that. It's too cursed. I can't be bothered dealing with that. Maybe I might do something on Scottish politics in the future. I think in the next video on necro-politics I'll bring in a little bit about how, not much, but like how jobs in Scotland and jobs in the UK building weapons are framed as more important than the lives of the people those weapons, the people in the global south, those weapons are going to be used to destroy. So there'll be some allusions there. If I have a particularly interesting idea about Scottish politics, then maybe. But you know, it just depends. Probably not. Nothing in the near future anyway. Here in Alberta, the far-right government forced all universities to adopt the Chicago Principles on free speech. At the same time that was happening, Marxist professors were subtly warned to stay quiet about their beliefs to avoid being targeted by the government and university administrators they installed. That's fucked up. But similar things... Hold on one second, I'm just going to fix my microphone. Sorry, bad noise. One of the things that's happening in the UK right now is similar to that, with the government pursuing plans to have university, like, quote, free speech regulators or something. But there's also plans that go along with the problems of coronavirus. Coronavirus has opened new ways to provide censorship by universities which have lost money, have been able to apply for restructuring loans, and part of the conditions of these restructuring loans is to have, quote, commitment to free speech on campus, and a quote and a commitment to not allowing certain people to speak at university unions, and not funding particular university union activity. And the particular university union activity they're referring to there will be anything which is deemed essentially too radical. And then there's also in the UK the stuff that I didn't have time to bring in that video. There's things like the government deciding that they want to ban the teaching of any materials that use like anti-capitalism, or critical race theory, or anti-colonialism. And there's been a real re-upping of the discourses of empire, ensuring that, in England anyway, that empire is being framed as something great and positive about the world. I saw that I was going to bring this up earlier, but I forgot to get the screenshot. There was an article written today about how the left wanted to make people feel bad about colonialism, but hey, colonialism did good things instead of bad things. If you want to cancel me, clip that out of context, and then you can do that. That's my gift to you. But this is it's just like common shite. But that is censorship in a way, because you are having to uplift that narrative that colonialism was good, and by doing so you are obviously subverting another narrative. It's zero sum in that way, if I'm using that word right, which I probably am. I'm not. But to lift up the narrative that empire and colonialism was good, you are going to necessarily have to suppress the narrative that it was bad, and in doing so you're censoring a whole load of materials, particularly those which are made by anti-capitalist or people with some degree of connection to critical race theory. So yeah, that sounds fucked up, toads. If anyone finds it annoying that I'm pronouncing it that way, then too bad. It's too fun to say. Okay. Sorry, just scrolling through the chat again. I'm enjoying how there's lots of things to talk about today. Haven't seen the free speech video yet, but hi John, I like the ones I have seen. Thanks very much. After this video, after this stream, you should go right ahead and watch it. I think it's pretty good. I think it's not quite as. I think it could have done with a few more days of rewrites. Because I'm very stressed out right now, guys. I'm very busy and I'm very stressed out. So I was running right up to the clock on this one, as I was in the last one. So I didn't have quite enough time to do some rewrites to tighten things up. But I think that in general, it's a pretty. I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. So yeah, give it a wee watch. Bubble Boy. I just remembered a small Irish news story from a few months back. We got a warning about press freedom from the EU because of a defamation lawsuit brought against a newspaper by a right-wing populist, free speech advocate and anti-eviction advocate. That's a cursed sentence. He was trying to sue the paper because they had reported on him showing up to help landlords with evictions, despite pitching himself as anti-eviction to his followers. That sounds bad, but it also and it's also one of the ways in which the law is essentially being set up to benefit, of course, those with property and power in society. As one of the main problems with obviously the problems with libel law in the UK is that it. And all, the entire legal system in the UK is that it obviously disproportionately helps people who have the money to be litigious. If you don't have the money to be litigious, you don't have access to these laws and these structures. So yet another tool that the moneyed and the property owning class has of shutting up anyone who doesn't have money. Oh yeah, Sanan, you missed the Grand Designs rant. I'll maybe repeat it for you at some point, but basically I hate Grand Designs and want to fire anyone who's been on it into the sun, and any property show. Talk to Ben Shapiro about Grand Designs. He could talk. I genuinely can't think of anything worse right now than talking to Ben Shapiro about Grand Designs. Imagine if he agreed with me. What would I do then? Imagine if like, you're talking to Ben Shapiro and suddenly he agrees with you. You just have to change your opinions. There's no other way about it. Independence, the one question. Yeah, the question that dominates the entirety of Scotland, and Scottish politics, and that no one's willing to really look behind or examine in any meaningful sense. The end is independence, and once independence comes, then things will be good, and let's not think about it any further. No thank you very much. We don't live in a neoliberal hellscape with a dominant neoliberal party. That will make the entire thing neoliberal. That will not happen, don't think about it. The Scottish left is totally fine and not disorganised at all. There are no issues. Thank you. We are not racist here. We're better than England, of course, because we're not racist in Scotland. Scotland's it's progressive. We have progressive nationalism because we're all progressive up here in Scotland. Better than England. We are the Canada of the United States. Don't think too hard about that analogy. We are all fine here. No problems with Orangemen. Never heard of them. Never heard of them. Don't exist. Not in my... Nothing bad could ever happen. Nope, and if you question it at all, that means you're a unionist, and that means you love Britain. John Unfiltered. Yeah, Prevent already does those restrictions. I thought, yeah, thanks for bringing Prevent up, and thanks for sending me Prevent. That article on Prevent, because yeah, Prevent is a real essential way of how free speech, how government structures influence free speech in a way that is never really spoken about within the free speech debate. And that was, I think, that third section of the video talking about the function of the free speech debate within liberalism is, I think, the best part of the video, because like I almost feel like I could cut out the first two sections and just do I've done a shorter video about the function of the free speech debate, but they were also responding to bits and pieces that annoy me within the current discourse on free speech. But that third section is my favourite part of the video, and as I think something that I don't think anyone else on YouTube has talked about regarding the free speech debate, on how it has always been a way that liberalism has othered and racialized people, and as this exists today, and actually as it has been the case for centuries in Europe, the Muslim is racialized as the other, which is using free speech and alienating them with invoking the language of liberal values or Western values, contrasted against the idea that Muslims don't have access to these values, and therefore don't deserve them as well. I think that was the most interesting part of the video. Oh God, there was an article in an Irish newspaper from this journalist complaining that the Irish president was unfair in how he assessed the impact of history of British colonialism. There was an article in an Irish newspaper complaining about that. Jesus Christ, that's a fun one. My particular shooting from the hip, my particular hot take on the British Empire and colonialism is that it was bad. I think the evidence will bear me out on that, but I do think it's bad. George Dunbar, what is the difference between neoliberalism and capitalism? Oh boy, you're going to set me off on this. Capitalism is a mode of production that has many associated ideologies to justify it. Neoliberalism is one of those associated ideologies. This is I saw a bad take the other day about how neoliberalism is over because of these various economic policies which are being infringed upon, and have been being infringed upon for decades now. But that post and the way people have understood neoliberalism in purely economistic terms has led to a lot of misunderstandings about what neoliberalism is. And it's not neoliberalism is not a mode of production. It's not a form of capitalism in itself. It is an ideology which justifies capitalism, and it's an ideology which has, because of the ideology, it has material effects. Don't get me wrong, but it is not in itself capitalism, and it is not in itself a mode of production. So, say what neoliberalism really is about reshaping the state and the individual to make them more in line with a particular vision of perfect capitalist utopia. It means restructuring the state to responsibilize and individualize the individual, and it's about making the individual self-regulating and making sure they individualize themselves. It's the idea that the economistic ideas that neoliberalism is over because of particular economic policies is one that I rail against a lot, and hopefully soon you should all be able to read a paper that I've got coming out on that, assuming it gets accepted. But yeah, if any more questions on neoliberalism, that is definitely something I can answer. Don't get me started on the UK legal system. I wish you would get started. I wish everyone would get started on the UK legal system. It's shit. Sorry, not got much more to say. It's shit. Yeah. Bumbleboy, finding common ground between the left and the right in their positions on grand designs. Yeah, the grand design's bad. That's my position. So just go. I like being behind the chat because it gets me to. It reminds me of where what I was talking about 5 minutes ago. We've got to the Orange Man bad section, talking about the The Orangeman. Oh yeah, this is a good comment. Oh my god, people have come at me with such weird energy when I lightly mention racism plus Scotland, especially colonial past online. Absolutely, it is such a badly spoken about and badly understood concept in Scotland. Not like, even in the way that Scotland, quote, deals with its imperial past, and it will say things like, "Oh, we recognise Scotland has this involvement, this dark history in imperialism," and that's like the best case scenario when people will talk about it as this dark past, yes. But there will always be this inflection that Scotland was forced into it by England, that we were the victims alongside the peoples and the countries that we willingly decimated and benefited from the decimation of. So yeah, and one of the most surprising things that people hear regarding Scotland and in their political positions is that consistently we have the exact same social attitudes as England. And the closest, like, not the exact same, there's a bit of differentiation there, here and there, but the area in which we have the absolute closest social attitudes, looking at like big data sets like the British and Scottish social election studies, the closest opinions that we have are over immigration. Immigration in Scotland is just as right-wing in terms of our perception of immigrants and of our perception of what immigration should be in Scotland as it is in England, and it's just bad. We are unable to deal with it. Scotland is completely, and the Scottish left is just as complicit in this. The Scottish left consistently believes itself to be more progressive than England. It consistently does, and in a sort of real weird way. That's sort of weirdly naturalistic in how it seems to perceive Scotland just being naturally more progressive. And it's just, if you're paying even the slightest bit of attention, it's just not true. Like, it's just, my ex-girlfriend was Sri Lankan. And I remember sitting one day just in a Glasgow park, and just people walked past and just shouted ISIS at her. Like, Scotland's attitude to race and to immigration is not better than England's, and it's something that Scotland and Scottish people, and the Scottish left particularly, needs to get over. Needs to get over quickly. Because I can imagine a situation where we become independent, and I think that's probably an inevitability at this point. I can imagine a situation where we become independent, and we're in this situation of probably a form of austerity, because, like I said, we've got a neoliberal party having some form of hegemony, and there likely will be some economic impacts of trying to deal with fucking separating from the UK, which will likely fuck us up to some degree. And there will probably be forms of austerity, and as neoliberalism continues to descend, as it will do, into more overt authoritarianism, that won't be held back in Scotland. That will continue in Scotland, and with a population as similar in their social attitudes as England, and with a party as committed to neoliberalism and business interests that can no longer necessarily blame Westminster for all of its problems, I can very much see it not being difficult for them to pivot into real dangerous, overt racist politics. I don't think that's something that the Scottish left is prepared for in the slightest. And I don't think there's even like the media structures of Scotland are even prepared for that in the slightest. Like, Scottish news media is essentially non-existent. In the BBC, it's like 10 minutes. The flagship Scottish programming is like 10 minutes of fucking whatever parliamentary game has been played that day. Then 10 minutes of a sheep up in the Highlands has escaped and come back 5 years later. And then 10 minutes of football. We've got no decent media structure at all to speak of up here to combat any of that. So yeah, things not great up in Scotland. Mark Sutton says, John, what do you think of the Northern Independence Party? I'm going to be honest with you. I thought it was a meme until even after they had sitting candidates, and then suddenly people started taking it really seriously. But they're still like posting heavy memes on their Twitter page. I'm like fucking. It's funny. It's funny that it's fucking up. It's really annoying Labour people. Like, I don't think it's going to do all that much. It might, if it makes Labour lose a seat. I don't think it's going to. I think if Labour lose that seat, it's not going to be because of the Northern Independence Party. But aside from that, I genuinely just don't think it's going to have that much impact. It's funny, I'll say that. John Unfettered, quote, British Empire bad. That's right. Straight from the dome. You heard it here first. John the Duncan cancelled for saying that the Empire is only bad and not terrible. That's right. Let's see. Thanks for answering my question on neoliberalism. No worries. I've got plenty videos talking about neoliberalism if you want to ever check them out and get more careful definitions of them. I think the one on authoritarian neoliberalism probably is the most careful definition of what neoliberalism actually is and what it isn't. Will the Ninja, evening lady, lads and ladies, and ladies, is this? Evening, Will. Peter Wyman, Grand Designs is the only good thing on British television. Get the fuck out of here. You're no longer welcome in this stream. Grand Designs is the only good thing on British television. You are sick. You're a pervert. You disgust me. You fucking worm. Grand Designs is the only good thing on... You... Jesus Christ. Ugh. Tude saying, have you seen Bad Empanada's video on neoliberalism, and if so, do you agree? I have not seen that video. I'm just halfway into his video on the on Xinjiang. I tend not to watch other people's videos on neoliberalism because I tend to just get annoyed. What his position is that liberalism saw free market economics as the most beneficial to society, whereas neoliberalism presupposes the supremacy of free markets and reshapes society to enable them. I think that is largely true. I think there are some subtleties in that are that I would maybe take some contention with, but essentially I think that's the case. It is about he's right there. It is about the reshaping of society. It's specifically about the reshaping of the state and the reshaping of the individual. Those are the two things that it is trying to reshape. But that it assumes the supremacy of the free markets. I would maybe have some. I mean, this is going to get into some academic definitional conversations that maybe not that interesting to that many people, but the idea that presupposes the supremacy of the free markets, I would maybe take contention with. There's work by people. I mean, it does do that, but it's not necessarily the central part of it. There's people like Ian Brough who argue that the role of the free market within the ideology of neoliberalism is like a utopian ideal through which other things are constructed, where it's not necessarily reshaping society to enable the perfect free market. It's about using the name of the free market to reshape society in favour of particular interests, and those interests being capital interests. But generally, I think that would be a better definition of neoliberalism than I see from a lot of academics who try to talk about it. So maybe I'll take a look at it and see what he's saying. Colin O, not to overgeneralize, but that's a fairly general view in my experience. Which view do you remember? Which view you're referring to there? Because I've been ranting and I've forgotten what I've been talking about. Paul Robin, off-topic question, but is there also a weird semi-overt sexism in the Scottish left as there is in the Irish left? there's, I mean, I would assume so. I'm not hugely active in the Scottish left anymore, but there's huge there's huge problems with like anti-trans bigotry, and obviously with the stuff with Alex Salmond, and this is whether you decide to call these people left or not, but with Alex Salmond being acquitted on those charges of sexual assault, a lot of people have been like approaching that. A lot of independent supporters who might consider themselves to be, if not left wing, at least centrists, have been approaching that with deeply misogynistic eyes, basically. And the way, like, I mean, I'm no fan of Nicola Sturgeon, but often the way she's perceived and the way she's talked about is obviously inflected with misogyny. I mean, the easy answer to that is yes, because all of society is patriarchal and deeply misogynistic, and even on the left that's difficult to overcome, but I can't think of any specific examples right now. I'm looking at, I'll take the fucking theoretical approach to answering that question and assume it's adequate. Sinan's saying, are you looking forward to my NIP video? Script is done, going to finish it tomorrow and hopefully get shit. Yeah, I mean, you can have the definitive take on NIP. It's funny that it's called NIP. I will laugh at that. Yeah, I mean, if anyone's not subscribed or to Sinan's YouTube or Twitch, you should do so, because he's good at those things and will have the definitive NIP take. He will be doing a NIP slip and putting out a video on it, which will be good. Let's get me cancelled for disagreeing with Sinan's video. Oh, me and Sinan can do a beef. We'll do an internet fucking beef to drum up clout. Let's beef for clout, Sinan. Me and you, in the Colosseum of clout. We will beef until we get until we get fucking 10,000 subscribers each. Beef zone, beef zone, beef zone. This is just me shouting at my friends now. George Zumbar, I'm new to politics, so still trying to learn. That's all right. We're all trying to learn. That the important thing is to always be open to learning and to always listen to me, who is always correct about everything. Let me shape your politics. Come and join me in the politics zone, where I will shape your politics to be the correct politics that I have always had. And if anyone tries to say that I have not always had the correct politics, they're lying to you. And they're probably CIA agents. So don't listen to them. The correct politics come from me. Peter, if you will die on this hill, fucking Kevin's a prick, Peter. Kevin's a prick. He does not deserve to trip off my tongue the name Kevin. He is a fucking... He is a smug prick. He's not as bad as Kirsty Allsop, who is the worst person on TV, but he's still pretty bad. Colin O saying, sorry, I'm in Wales, and there's a similar view here to the one you've described in Scotland regarding race, imperialism, and colonisations. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me that much. And I suspect that. Will it be the case that people in the Welsh left maybe aren't quite as aware of Wales's role in imperialism as well? Join me, Mr. Duncan, in the beef dojo. Yes, that's right. Me and Sinan, we'll be debating the big debate. The big debate between the UK leftists on... I've already forgotten what we're arguing about, but... Oh, NIP. Yes. Let's argue in the NIP. Sinan, me and you in the NIP zone arguing. NIP zone beef. There we go. Peter Wyman asking, what plans have you got for research writing in the future? Maybe a book on neoliberalism. well, I mean, I've got to finish my PhD. That's that's part one, and then we'll see how my research interests develop in that time. They've already kind of changed a bit since I first started the PhD, and maybe getting into more sort of theoretical stuff. I right now I'm just fucking waiting for so long for my ethical approval to finally start my interviews. Once that I'm almost finished a chapter, and once I've finished this chapter, then then I'll have nothing more to do until I can start my interviews, and that's stressing me the fuck out. But that's one of the things doing a PhD is it just takes up your entire life, and it's one of the good things about doing YouTube videos. Is that it forces me to look beyond the narrow confines of my research project and think about things like free speech, or the next video on necro-politics, and forcing me to engage with a whole diverse range of really interesting literature on a whole range of topics. I'm not sure a book on neoliberalism would be all that interesting, and neoliberalism itself is not, like, on its own is not what I'm interested in. I'd be interested, depending on how my research goes, on maybe doing some more research in building forms of resistance to neoliberalism, and how to most effectively build those forms of resistance. Because that's why I've done a lot of reading and research into neoliberalism for the PhD project, is because in order to understand how to resist something, you have to understand the thing itself. And that's why it's often frustrating to me how quick, particularly economists, but other people too who have reductionist or myopic economistic views of neoliberalism, they frustrate me a lot, because they will not understand the ways that we have to resist neoliberalism. They will view it in technocratic terms, and they will say, like, oh, there's been big investment into the economy since the pandemic struck, so therefore this form of governmentality and this form of politics is now dead, and it will miss the ways in which that governmentality still produces these individualizing forces, and still cuts people off from each other and from society. And we need to we need to understand ways of generating basically social movement, action and solidarity to ensure that we can resist that. And that can't be done if we're understanding it in purely economistic terms. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll maybe do, what I'll do in the future. It just depends on how my thinking develops, and how and what opportunities there are. If I had the likely process of the future is going to be, I'll end up I'll do my PhD. I'll end up in a real low wage, insecure employment contract with a university, teaching a couple classes a week and trying to do some fucking work on the side to try and survive, given the shit state of academia in the UK right now. I was thinking about doing a video on the state of academia and the way that it's been fucking gutted in the past 40 years, but I worried that would be too insular, too much of like here's an academic talking about how shit everything is for academics. that might not play all that well, but it's in the back of my mind to talk about it. Lol, John, it would be deeply funny if you turned into one of those leftists who calls everything a psyop. I won't call everything a psyop, but I'll call anything that disagrees with me a psyop. If you disagree with me, you're a CIA agent, and I can prove it, because I'll prove it with logic. CIA agents disagree with me. You disagree with me. Therefore, you're a CIA agent. There we go. That is fucking maths. As someone in my comment section put it the other day, logic is just maths. That is mathematical proof that anyone who disagrees with me is a CIA agent, and I will not be taking questions at this time on that indelible, concrete logic that I just formulated for y'all there. The fucking pro-grand design left are all CIA psyops. That is absolutely true. That is 100% true. why else would they be supportive of what is clearly a upper class bourgeois project of Grand Designs? It's called Grand Designs. Have you ever seen anyone who wasn't fucking swimming in money being on it? No, of course you haven't. It's bourgeois propaganda. As the Frankfurt School would say, it's fucking fascism. It is, the Grand Designs is fascism. That is my hot take right now. Tweet it out, note it down. Grand Designs equals fascism. Kyren saying, main thing I'm disappointed in about the NIP has been how quickly a lot of the small new parties have immediately turned on them for doing it wrong because they're the first to get noticed. Yeah, I guess that's probably wait, sorry. Wait, I just clocked. Did someone say Fanon was a psyop? What? I did not hear that. We're going to go back to talk about NIP for a second, and then we'll get to Fanon being a psyop. What's that about? Thoughts and feelings on Femi's speech? Oh my god, the Femi speech was just incredible. I love the Femi speech. For anyone who doesn't know, anyone not in the UK and unaware, Femi is a political commentator? I don't think that's the right way to describe him. He's an activist, a pro-EU activist who raised to prominence during the 2016 referendum, for anyone who doesn't know. And he's kind of just an interesting mind. And he's released this a few days ago. He put out a tweet saying, Miss Keir Starmer, I am writing an article that is in your interest to stop me from writing. You can stop me from writing this article by doing this, this, and this. And that was already so funny. That was already so tasty. I could taste it. Oh, beautiful. Little morsels of poster's brain. And then today he posts the article or the speech he'd written for Keir Starmer. And it was just proportional representation. It was just like this real heavy-handed. I think at one point he says, like our democracy is like the fucking destruction. It is the destruction of democracy or something like that. And it's just about PR, proportional representation. Like, this guy has looked at the deep political fucking problems of our age, the deep structural issues of capitalism, the impending fucking global climate change disaster that is endemic to, like, inevitable within the structures of capitalism. And he's thought, fuck, we need to do proportional representation because then we will be forced to work together and our differences will be put aside to work for the common good. It is pure, and I mean this literally, it's pure first year politics student stuff. It's like the moment you hear about proportional representation, that is the essay that you will write to defend it, and it is beautiful. I love it so much. So I do have a stream set aside to do a NIP stream follow up to the video. You should get people who know about NIP to talk about that. Like Foucault, Adorno, Frantz Fanon, who according to people on Twitter were also psyops. Oh, okay, there, I see what you were saying now. Who? What? Fanon? Who thought Fanon? Who thought? Who? Sorry, that's broken my brain a bit. Who thought Frantz Fanon, a man who's famous for writing a book arguing for violent revolution against the colonizers, was a CIA psyop? What was the psyop? Like, with Foucault, I can see it because he was quite, like, he had a complicated relationship with Marxism, and he had a complicated relationship with neoliberalism, so I can, and like, you know, people on the left who, like, the people on the left who don't like post-structuralists or don't like the censoring of discourse over, like, materialism, I can see why they would say that about Foucault. But Frantz Fanon? Like, Frantz Fanon? That's wild. People need to take their heads and remove them from their anuses and maybe think a little bit before they post. I don't, because all my posts are naturally gold, as we have already established. Kevin MacLeod's original grand design was the Bay of Pigs invasion. Some people are saying this. And not just some people are saying this, Colin. I'm saying that. That's what Kevin MacLeod, he is responsible for the Bay of Pigs. That is absolutely true. How are you celebrating the anniversary of Thatcher's death today? Oh, last night, when it struck midnight, I poured myself, this is not a joke, I poured myself a glass of wine. I had a lovely glass of wine, played a bit of Assassin's Creed with a glass of wine, and had a lovely time. Paul, I might have a whiskey later. I might also do that. Just have a double celebration of her still being in the dirt. Peter Wyman, I would love a video on British academia. I'm studying for an English degree at the moment, and I'm increasingly annoyed by how universities operate. Doesn't help being working class student at CAMS. Yeah. So my ideas for this video, and one of the reasons why I'm a bit against it at the moment, is because it will obviously be deeply about neoliberalism, and it will be deeply about how the academy has been restructured to be more like a product, and how students have been reconceptualized as consumers of that product. And I also don't know how much I will be able to stop myself talking about stuff that's probably not okay to talk about regarding my particular institution. But I'm also trying to move more away from doing videos on just neoliberalism, because just looking back at the videos I did last year, there was like 6 of them, like half of them that I did last year were on neoliberalism, and that just gets boring for people after a while, and it just ends up me repeating myself after a while. But I might do it. I might do it in the future if I need a month that I without huge amounts of research. If I get too burnt out, I might end up doing that. We'll see. I hope your English degree is doing okay. Where's CAMS? I don't know that university. Yep, George Dunbar, grand designs equals fascism noted. That is exactly right. I'm going to put that on my gravestone. Oh my god, there's a Class Grand Designs episode where this bloke loses about 3 million quid and divorces his wife because of it. That sounds fucking incredible. Mate, that's the only episodes. That's what Grand Design should be about. It should be about rich pricks pouring their money into stupid vanity projects, then destroying their lives. That would be a Praxis TV show about how the bourgeois are all fucking idiots. They're all fucking idiots. That's what it should be about. Grand Design's Revenge Edition, exactly. Exactly. Bread Theory, dang, I'm super late. Don't worry. We're still chugging along here. We've talked a bit about free speech. We've not talked about the patriotism video. Which is fine. I mean, if anyone wants to ask any questions about that, that's fine. But I'm working without a script today, seeing how it goes, and I'm just going off with the chat. It's just me and the chat, and the sexual tension between me and chat. That's what's going on. That's what's going on in this video. Oh, and the important stuff you've missed is that Grand Designs, the property show, is fascism, and anyone who disagrees with me is a CIA op. Those are the important things that you've missed. Sanan. He's agrocentrism without the anger. Femi, yes. Yeah, he is agrocentrism without the anger. He's just such a... does he not just wish for a quiet life where he can just stop posting? Just stop, man. You're not good at this. I don't know what you're getting out of this. Does he has he got any position? He doesn't seem to get, much money out of it. He just does it for the passion of posting. I guess that's admirable. Do what you love. I assume this is regarding Fanon. It was based entirely around the US offering him medical treatment at the end of his life while with a CIA agent accompanying him. Yeah, that's silly. I just don't understand. Like with that, like, assuming that, let's just assume for a second that he was um, a CIA op, and the CIA accompanied him to give him medical treatment at the end of his life. It like wouldn't affect any of the work he produced. Maybe it was just like, if someone is a CIA op and produces that incredibly incisive and important and revolutionary work on colonialism, then they're not a very good CIA op, or they're a very good CIA op who's managed to embody what needs to be said at the particular times. That's a very weird one. I don't like to dunk on Femi a lot because some of the vim for him is very anti-black, but he keeps being such a ridiculous meme. Yeah, I get that as well. It's like it's just like he put out that speech today, and there's just no way that you can't look at it and go, mate, we need to dunk. You're making us dunk. You're begging us to dunk on you by writing things like that. You can tell when a Grand Designs episode has been filmed by how bald Kevin MacLeod is. Yeah, and how bad his he really goes for that for a while. He really goes for that Jeremy Clarkson jacket and jeans look, and then for a while before that, I've watched a lot of Grand Designs, folks. This has been the year I've had to move back with my parents. It's been fucking Grand Design central. It's just been hard. Being with my parents is good in a lot of ways. Grand Designs is not one of those ways. I've seen every episode like twice. I must have done. It's hellish. Kevin is spiritually bald. Colin O, just how patriotic are you, John? Are you patriotic enough? Yes. If I see a flag, I will fly into a rage and I will tear it apart. That's just how patriotic I am. Tude saying, sorry, I should stop pronouncing your screen name like that. It's just quite fun. My government wants universities to just give up on education and non-commercial research and become job training institutions. They're using performance-based funding for this transition. That is exactly the same as the process at UK universities. I imagine it's the same for almost every neoliberal system. Like, it's going to be part of it. Education has to be reframed as something of a commodity, and students have to be buying this commodity, and the commodity should be turning them into job, like economic actors, the homo economicus. You're only valid if you are an economic actor under neoliberalism. Spoiler alert for the next video, but that has deep connotations with necro-politics. If you are not an economic actor, if you don't have, if you're not working in a job that is quote productive or economically useful, then you can be defined as waste, and that's has obvious implications for disabled people who already have massive structural barriers to the workplace. If you've got a structural barrier to the workplace, and then you can't be an economic actor, then your being is being forced into what the state defines as waste. And also in terms of, like, in this country, asylum seekers, while they're going through the asylum process, which can take years, can't work. So their lives, again, because they are not economically useful, because they're considered a drain, their lives are considered not valuable. So yeah, they're not that's how necro-politics, that's what in part what the next video is going to be about, but that's how necro-politics and neoliberalism can often coexist. Let's see what. Yeah, and lots of performance-based funding. A lot of the performance-based funding Talked about this on 10k posts with Hussein, but a lot of the performance-based funding is based on the research excellence framework. I think it's still called that. Fuck, I should know. And that mandates that academics publish a certain amount of things per year, and you've got to publish these things to keep your contracts, and you've got to publish these things so the university can claim that they're great performing universities and get more funding. And that just basically ends up with stressed academics with too much workload producing bad research. And I think that's part of the reason why you've got this in academia. You've got this increasing type of research, which is to take a quantitative issue, like a data set or something, which has been analysed in one way to look at one question, and analysing it in a slightly different way to analyse a slightly different question that you could probably just figure out through logic. I get an example that my dad often brings up is studies about whether or not managers work from the UK who go to China to manage in firms, whether or not they find it easier to adapt within the city life or within the countryside life. Now, obviously, the answer to that is within the countryside life. Is within the city life, because they're more urbanized and more globalized places with more accessible amenities and all that. And you could easily come to that conclusion without doing papers with big data sets. But loads and loads of papers analysing the same question from slightly different angles have been produced, largely because people just have to produce papers to keep up with their performance reviews. So things like that have real shitty influences on the production of academic work. And there's my academic rant done again. Femi doesn't even have a proper grift. He was employed on an anti-Brexit thing, but I don't know if that's still the case. Yeah, fucking who knows what that guy is doing. Just a bizarre grift. He's got not a fake grift. Daniel Hughes, some shitty clients of mine run a chain of funeral homes and have spent their COVID boon on pimping out their house, but it's gone wrong in just about every way imaginable. What the fuck? That's incredible. I mean, this is probably not the case, but I am just imagining like a funeral director's pimped out house with just like, I don't know why a funeral director would have this, but I'm imagining like diamond encrusted coffins decorating the wall. I mean, clearly they probably don't take their work home, but that's just what's in my head right now. But that does make me laugh a bit. I'm going to start discourse that Vladimir Lenin was a CIA psyop. I will join in on that discourse. Why do we have so much property porn in the UK? That might be an interesting topic for a video at some point. I wonder. I could probably relate it to neoliberalism. I can relate anything to it. Try me. I'll relate. Put it in the chat. Put in the most ridiculous thing that you can think of in the chat, and I will find a way to relate it to neoliberalism. The truth is mine to bend as I see fit, and I will make anything related to neoliberalism. Just you see. Charlie Hallam, I'm a disabled sex worker. I'm very aware the government would rather I be dead. Yeah, they're not great. They're not great in that regard. That's probably not the best reaction to that comment, but yeah. The Guardian used to run a piece called Let's Move To. I fondly imagine every local saying, don't you effing dare. Let's see. Oh, Daniel Hughes, please go into detail about the pimped out funeral home or whatever. I'd be very, very interested to hear that. Oh wow, I'll be talking for an hour. That's quite good for this. This has gone quite well. Just maybe I'll stop doing 3,000 pages of notes for streams, and I'll just rely on the chat to provide me with content to spit back at you. The lore of the video game Hollow Knight. Okay, let me do this. I don't know the lore of the video game Hollow Knight, but Hollow Knight, hollow, to presume a hollow person, neoliberalism has to hollow out the being of humanity and replace it with pure economic rationality. The Hollow Knight is just another word for Homo economicus within the neoliberal framework. There we go, fucking done. Next, boom. How do you relate the increased interest in incest porn to neoliberalism? Oh, okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, sure. Neoliberalism and the increased financialization and increased digitization and increased reliance on algorithms to produce content, produce knowledge. The way that neoliberalism has individualized us and has split us up to view porn as just as not even erotic, as just something that is there to be consumed, a product to be consumed, means that they turn it into just algorithmically generated entertainment. And as people have clicked on this algorithmically generated entertainment, it's become a feedback loop which has become memified. So as incest porn has become memified, it's become privileged within the algorithm. As neoliberalism has commodified sex, commodified every aspect of our lives, and sold it back to us as entertainment, it has turned porn and incest porn into an algorithmically generated feedback loop. There we go. Related to neoliberalism. Dark Souls lore videos. Is that YouTube videos on the lore of Dark Souls? Because that's easy, just producing commodified entertainment on commodified entertainment on commodified entertainment. We're increasing the market logic into every area of life, not just in the games, but in the reception to the games, in the discussion of the games, in the platforms on which we discuss those games. Neoliberalism plays a role in those things. I am unstoppable. The UK property market is definitely a good subject. I remember hearing an FT contributor on the radio was saying no British government will propose anything that will lower property prices. Yes, I have had on the back of my mind doing a video on housing for a while now. What has stopped me is that I'm not an economist and I worry about making economic takes, especially because Unlearning Economics follows my YouTube channel and once said I had a good vibe and I don't want to disappoint him. But I have got an idea for a housing video on the back burner. Again, that will obviously relate to neoliberalism. I feel like John with neoliberalism is what I'm like with making everything about abolition and decolonial thought. I mean, perhaps. I think neoliberalism and abolition and decolonial thought relate as well. Jose Baltasar Torre Barba saying, wait, actually that works because in the lore of the game there's this king and he creates a Hollow Knight who won't fall thrall to the memory of a forgotten deity. So the king is neoliberalism and the forgotten deity is socialism. Damn, and got that from just the title. Impressive. I am unstoppable. I am unstoppable. Charlie Hallam, speaking as a sex worker who sees clients in person. Actually, I and most of my clients don't use it. Porn has become disconnected from desire and lived sexuality. I genuinely do. I was speaking off the dome there, but I do think there is definitely something in the way that porn has become just some sort of hollow entertainment that has been sort of pumped back at us during the neoliberal age. I genuinely think there's something in that, which is depressing. Oh, I depressed myself. It's only taken an hour and 20 minutes and I depressed myself. Been a good stream, guys. Thanks for being good today, chat. You've all been great today. Colin O, the young woman I referred to above with regards to Welsh racism is trying to decolonise the Welsh history curriculum. Oh, that's interesting. I hope she gets on well with that. Sorry, I just got here, but do you have a view on the Northern Independence Party? Bean McQueen, earlier we were talking about that. My view on the Northern Independence Party is that for much longer than I should have realised, I just thought it was a meme. Even after they had candidates, I was like, yeah, this is just a meme. It's just a joke. I don't think it's going to have any huge impact, really. Because, I mean, if Labour loses that seat, I don't think the Northern Independence Party is necessarily going to play a huge part in that, and I don't think they're the people who are going to be to blame for that. I think it would be funny if Labour lost that seat, and I think it's funny how it makes people lose their minds. The Northern Independence Party. So that's my take. How is me losing my keys tied into neoliberalism? Notice how everything in that sentence, me losing my keys, purely the view of the individual. Everything that we conceive of this world is filtered through the mind, the conception of the individual. How is me losing my keys tied to neoliberalism? The subject in that sentence is pure individualism, pure product of neoliberalism. If Scotland votes for independence, could you move the border to Manchester, please? Mithril, like I wish, like we're saying, I wish I could say in a post-independent Scotland things would be much better. I simply don't believe that to be the case. If we move the border to Manchester, I just doubt Scotland and England are going to be all that much different. I hate to burst your bubble. It's like a cartoon. Yeah, I Charlie Hallam, I agree there. John, unfiltered just shoots constant gold. That's what people keep saying. I've heard that quite a lot. So we'll give this about another 5 minutes. We'll cut this off at like half 10. So get in your last questions and your last your last wee bits and pieces in to chat about for the next 5 minutes while we wind down, because I hate to be blue, but I really need a pee. So we'll give it another 5 minutes and then I will run to the toilet. How do you relate the increased sales of SUVs and decreased sales of sedans to neoliberalism? SUVs, the product of intense marketing, intense levels of marketing to make people feel like they have control and power over their own lives. And what is missing within the neoliberal subject of these days, in which we have no control over our work conditions, over our family lives? What is missing? That's right, control. SUVs are marketed us to give us the sense of power that is missing through the development of the neoliberalized subject. I'm fucking firing off the truth, just fucking gold off the dome. I should do this more often. I try to do once a month. I missed last month because I was just really busy. But I try to do one stream once a month. This has been a better stream than normal. Normally, the reason I normally don't do that much streams is because normally they take huge amounts of writing and huge amounts of work to prepare for a stream, because I get worried about not being able to say anything and like stuttering and stuff on stream, and my computer is really bad, so I can't like show videos or anything to deal with that. It's like it just doesn't work very well, which is why this is sort of just a picture of me with the word cancelled over my face, because I just don't have a good computer that can deal with streams. So that's why I normally only do like one stream a month. But this has been really good. No notes and just being able to chat with folk has been good. And maybe since I've got slightly my channel is growing slightly more, I might be able to do more streams that are just chilling out, just chatting with the chat, just getting to know you all and developing parasocial relationships. So yeah, let's catch up. Hear me out. Grand Designs, the musical. Mumford and Sons will do the songs. J.K. Rowling will write the book. Colin O, will you please fucking put down the lathe? Put down the lathe of heaven. You have conjured into the world the most depressing, the most outrageous thought that I have ever seen in my life, and you need to step away from the lathe, or else we will all be miserable. On Mumford and Sons, by the way, I am taking credit for breaking up Mumford and Sons, because I'm fairly certain that my and not to be too online, I'm fairly certain that my quote tweet dunk on that Mumford and Sons banjo player about Andy No, I'm fairly certain that was the most shared one of his of the dunks on him. So I'm taking credit. It was taking credit for breaking up Mumford and Sons, and I would like people to appreciate that, please. From now on, just refer to me as John Duncan, destroyer of Mumford and Sons, and I will be happy if I achieve nothing more in my life. Bean McQueen, I enjoy your videos, that's all. Thanks, Bean McQueen. Thanks for sticking around and saying that. I appreciate it. As a person from a working class background who's lucked into going to a private school on a bursary, and I'm now working towards my PhD, sometimes I feel I don't belong in the left working class circles. Well, nah, don't. That's horseshit. The left. I am from a very comfortably middle class background, and that has been the reason why I've been able to do lots of things I've been able to do, including go to university and including doing the PhD right now. Where you belong has nothing to do with your background. Where you, in this regard, where you belong in left circles is what you want to do, who you have solidarity with, and the goal to which you're striving. We all need as many people as possible working towards the same goals and organising together. So yeah, you belong in left circles. And you wouldn't believe, not to dunk on anyone, but when I went down to London, and this isn't a dunk. Don't worry, I'm not being sarcastic here. When I went down to London, first of all, and I met people in left circles down in London, I was amazed that I was one of the only ones who didn't go to private school. Like, just everyone around me in those sort of radical circles. And particularly in media or like social media circles, those people are all privately educated, Oxbridge educated, very wealthy people. And they don't feel any shame about being on the left and being in those circles. So if you're a person from a working class background who managed to get a bursary to private school and do a PhD, you should not feel out of place because of that. Don't individualize these issues onto yourself. This is now my therapy for you. Join John's Patreon to get him a better computer. Yeah, that's the goal. I should be getting a better. I'm gonna get a better camera. In May, I'm gonna get a better camera for my birthday. So we'll no longer have the webcam footage for May's video. Hopefully, we'll be getting a better camera. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's past now. I think we will call that a day. Oh, thank you, Daniel. I'm excited to see that. Yeah, with that little bit of therapy, and discussion of the role of the privately educated in the left, I think we will call that a day for today's stream. I'll play you out with a bit of music,
and then I will rush very, very quickly to the toilet before looking at the funeral directors. So, thanks for coming along. Thanks for being great today, chat. Genuinely, being great today. Cheers.
People in shadows, protected from sanitized light. Innocent pledges ring hollow, skulking away from the fight. Friends